Hey everybody, welcome back. I am your host, Joe JDF Foster, and today's gonna be a simple one video for me. Let's start off with an obvious question. What do these have in common? Basketball, baseball, soccer, racing, running, chess, shogi or go, and Jeopardy, the what used to be known as the Scholars Bowl, for a while was known as College Ball. I'm not even sure if it still exists. And Mario Kart and Mortal Kombat. That's right. They're all games. They're all different types, whether they're sports or video games or just regular competitions. But see, in the media today, they like to say that sports are bad because they promote competition and they promote somebody trying to feel like they're better than somebody else. But I'm on the other side of this, where it actually talks about sports and video games and even board games or other types of games are actually important to a person's health and development. And that's what today's video is going to be about. Now, one reason that this is important, that these type of games are important, is they teach teamwork and communication skills. Down the line, this could be important for jobs, like factory workers, marketing, and office jobs even. These could be helpful with. Because while it promotes competition to actually get the work done correctly and getting things like Employee of the Month, which in some places have been known to have benefits for them, like a certain amount added into their paycheck or an extra vacation time at some point. Another thing is that if you can show that you can be part of a team and have good communication skills, factory jobs such as boat making, clothing jobs, things like that will want you, because if you're a team player, they'll know you'll get along and you're not going to deliberately try to cause trouble without a good reason. And in marketing and office jobs, competition is good, especially in the marketing department, because if you can because this will help to prove that you are the best by what you can come up with, what ideas you have. In office jobs, being part of a team is helpful because it helps to get the project done. And I'm saying office jobs and marketing, but this can pretty much apply to any job. Also, when you're trying to get a job, like with construction, people will try to do what they call bidding for a job, where they'll name a price that they can do the work for, and the construction the job person who wants their job done, whether it's painters, construction crews to build a building, whatever. These people will give what they call a bid, where they name what the amount they're going to go with that it will cost to do this, and that's with labor. In some places, in others don't include labor in this, but they give you a general overview of what they think it'll cost, and the person can decide what they think's the best price and what's in their price range and go with it. Sometimes this is a good thing, sometimes it's not, but overall it's a good thing with competition because it allows for the idea that you have options and you're wanting to prove your work is the best through this. Even in the toy market, you can have different gaming systems such as the Xbox, the PlayStation 4, and the Nintendo Switch, and you will have people on different sides of it based on why they like it. Another thing about these type of games and competitions is that it's good for social skills. One way this could be good is in making friends. Like a kid who's bullied in school could join a sports team, and suddenly the people who were bullying him or treating him or her badly, could actually end up being their best friend because they find a common interest, and it helps. It promotes sportsmanship, which, though some athletes don't tend to show this, or some competitors don't. Sportsmanship is a way of showing that you're kind and you're respectful of the other person. And doing this often makes you look better later on, and makes you look better in that moment, as well as gets people to think highly of you because of it. Which, if like a future job, if they know you played sports or competed in these competitions, that you're known for being a good sport, it could actually give you a better edge over a lawsuit, over a lot of other people because of that reason. And also, when you're making friends or rivals out of this, it helps them to develop their social skills, such as talking to people, getting out of their shells. And from what I've read, which I find interesting, a lot of them, a lot of a number of psychiatrists, don't know the exact number, but psychiatrists and psychologists have actually recommended the idea of video game therapy, where they do online gaming and participating in tournaments and playing sports as a way to help with that. And also, this could teach them control of their temper, anger. If they've got anger issues, this could actually help them, not just video games, but with other games as well, such as board games, trivia games, and sports, can actually help with the idea that you don't have to be. It teaches you how to control your anger, and even teaches discipline, which again can be helpful later on in life when you got to deal with people you can't get along with, or even in day-to-day life. For me, basketball was my escape. I could step onto a basketball court, and in that moment, all the tension that I had in my body would just float away. I was free. And during the game, I could get angry, and it wouldn't show as much. Yeah, I would show that I'm angry, but as much rage as there could have been built up inside, it wouldn't show when I was on the court, because I was on the court playing and my body was relaxed. And like video games, they've been doing tournaments for these things for a long time now, for at least a decade, I know. And Mortal Kombat's one of the biggest ones for it. Even in the video game itself, it comes up with leagues, and it's not the only one. Madden, NBA, baseball, all have that in some form. But like I said, Mortal Kombat's a big one on it, because if you played Mortal Kombat 11, they even got a place they call the tournament, where it's actually like you go to like a video game tournament area, and it's got built like that, only they have the stage there for the fighters to compete on. And also, another thing that's become big as a form of competition is speedrunning in video games. Seeing who can beat the game the fastest, who can beat it meeting certain conditions, such as with a lot of them I've watched are Super Mario Bros. 3 on the NES or on the NES emulators. When they do this, the idea is I've seen them do it where they don't allow for warp tunnels. They don't allow for the idea of using the warp whistles to go from the first level or second level to the eighth warp. From the second world to the eighth world instantly. They want them to actually go through it and beat it. And the idea is who can do it the fastest. React Channel did a video on YouTube. The React Channel even did a video where they had a professional speedrunner compete against some of the players, but didn't tell them they were up against a speedrunner so that they could see how well they did. And the speedrunner, after it was revealed that they were a professional speedrunner type, gave them some hints and tricks to how to beat the level faster. And there are people who, if you go on YouTube, you'll see this a lot, where they're doing speedrunning videos to show how good they are to try and break world records. I didn't know for a while that they did have them. And then I saw that they had them, and I was like, cool, see what they could do. And then I noticed a lot of them did it for like old NES games, Sega games like Sonic the Hedgehog, Super Nintendo games. Super Mario World tends to be the most the most popular one. On Nintendo, they even did Mega Man speed runs, which I'm actually impressed at how fast some of them can do it. There's even some who do these speed runs and take no damage, which I find really impressive. My third reason for why these are important: respect or pride can come in rivalries. Examples of this are in professional baseball. You get the Yankees and the Mets, or the Yankees and the Red Sox, depending on which rivalry you're more into. If you like the cross-town rivals, or if you like the actual national, or if you actually like the real rivalries, as they consider it, with the Yankees and the Red Sox. Another one, and this one actually happens even in my own family, is the Chicago Cubs and the Chicago White Sox. Me personally, I'm a White Sox fan, no matter how close I am to St. Louis. Chicago White Sox. I used to be a big Colorado Rockies fan, but they don't really have any rivalries to speak of, and from what I can tell, so I became a fan of the White Sox. At first, it was despite my father, but then players like Frank Thomas, and I looked up in the history of the White Sox and found players like Shoeless Joe Jackson and other famous players who actually played for the White Sox and were really good, and I actually became a fan of them, and I have been for a long time, even to this day. But one of the things about it is the Cubs versus White Sox is a big rivalry in Chicago especially, which is a good thing in my view. Though some do take these rivalries too seriously and have been known to get violent over it, or gone to social media and went out of control with it. And feel free to leave a comment on who your favorite rivalry is, no matter what the sport. Another example of rivalries, and this is one between me and my mother actually, as odd as that may sound, is college football. The University of Tennessee Volunteers playing the Alabama Crimson Tide in a rivalry. It's known as the third Saturday in October. Even though there have been odd cases where it hasn't been played on the third Saturday, usually because there's either the odd number of Saturdays, or because it happened to fall that was their vacation week that week, they would play the game the next week or the previous week to make up for it. Another one, and one that's popular, is the New England Patriots in professional football versus the New York Giants. Some would say the New York Jets versus the New York Giants, but I'm sorry, since the days of Joe Namath, that hasn't really been a rivalry, in my view. It's pretty much favored the Giants. Now with the Patriots, because of Tom Brady there for a long time, it became a big deal. And the rivalry actually got better. And then you got Eli, who came in, and he seemed to be a big kryptonite for the Patriots. Both times they played the Patriots in the Super Bowl. Also, family game nights. And when I say family game nights, there's actually a TV show called Family Game Night, where it had competitions between two different families, and even shows like Family Feud and things like that, where they try and guess the right answer. Well, family game nights I'm actually referring to here is like when families would pick a night of the week, and they would actually play board games, card games, video games, something where they would compete with each other, and it was about the pride and bragging rights, rather than the idea of just bragging in general. It was about knowing that you were better than them in that situation when it came to that certain time. And like I said, they made game shows around some of these games that people used to play. Password and $25,000 pyramid. These got made into games as well as being game shows. And people enjoyed them. The Game of Life even got a TV show at one point. Given it wasn't as good as the game actually was. Same as the Monopoly. There's some where they do music trivia. There's a lot of them. Trivial Pursuit's a good one for this. Though, I'm not really sure how much Trivial Pursuit's changed since so long ago, other than maybe they just updated the questions. But still, it's a good way to challenge people. And fantasy football leagues are another example of people becoming social over over games. Because by competing in these competitions, whether it's just friendly bragging rights again, or some leagues actually do money, where you can make so much money for being right, and then whoever wins it overall can end up taking home an even bigger jackpot out of the deal. Or if they end up having the actual, by winning so much of it, they actually end up making it and getting even more of the pot. Now, another thing, and another reason for this is that Vegas and other places that do gambling often do this, where they'll be like, set up a league or just play these games for fun, and you can bet against Vegas and make money off of them if you actually happen to be right. I've gotten text messages that I've had to hit the stop on. I've had to actually send stop messages to tell them I wasn't interested in joining the leagues or joining these advertisements where they wanted me, where I could win money off of being right. Because for me, it's about the competition of being right, but not about making money off of it. Though I wouldn't be against it necessarily. But overall, it's about the being right in it. Also, my number 4 reason for why for why games and competitions are important, you don't have to be the best in order to win. Yeah, skills in football, such as being great at running or being able to throw the ball or being able to hit somebody and outweighing them by so much that you can just push them down with a finger, basically, are good. But they're not always the best thing, because every advantage that you can have tends to have a similar disadvantage. Such as a lot of quarterbacks have started to become in the last decade or two, started to become running quarterbacks, whereas they used to be, they would either be a quarterback or a running back or a wide receiver. Whereas now you got people like Lamar Jackson, who broke Michael Vick's record, and single game rushing record by a quarterback. And how did he do it? He had a team that would actually defend him, actually defend for him, and he could make the move. He could actually manage the yards off of it. Now, some of this, again, I'm going to go back to Peyton Manning for this, because there's a lot of things I noticed about him. And this is the reason why I don't like him, but I like Eli. When it comes to Peyton, he would act like he did everything on the field despite having a team, which is where some of it can go bad. Peyton would say things when they won that would make it sound like he did everything, but when they lost, it was the team effort. Eli, on the other hand, win or lose, it was a team effort, but when they lost, he was more likely to say "I" when he was asked about what went wrong and why the team couldn't pull out the win. It would be, we tried, but I didn't have enough to help us, and I made a lot of mistakes. He didn't try to blame the team when they lost and then try to take all the credit when they won. And that's why I have a problem with Peyton Manning, because that's where his biggest issue was that he would say "I" when they won, when his team won, but he would turn around and say it was, we didn't have enough to win, that we just ran out of power, or something like, or some variation of that, where he blamed the whole team for it when they lost. But anyways, that was a tangent. Sorry. Um, Sometimes you don't have to be the best because luck or being better prepared for the match can actually help you. There are chess players who spend hours a day, not like one or two games being played on the occasional day. They'll actually spend hours a day coming up with different scenarios on their board on their test boards just to see if they can find ways around it so that when it comes to an actual tournament, they'll be ready. There are teams in sports, one of the biggest things they're known to do is study film footage of their upcoming opponents and how they played against other teams so that they will be ready to try and figure out a counteraction to the team so that they have a better chance of winning. One big thing in boxing that people underestimate the idea that you didn't have to be the best in order to win is Ali versus Foreman and the Rope-a-dope. Despite what the name says, what it sounds like, Ali was to face Foreman. Foreman outweighed him, outmuscled him, and had one of the biggest odds on him, where Foreman was expected to win almost hands down. Well, Ali, for a good amount of the fight, gave it everything he had, couldn't take Foreman down. Foreman was beating him, and basically taking Ali to the limits. Well, Ali came up with an idea. And this, I think, was actually an idea they used in Rocky 3. I think they used this idea. Well, during the match, Ali started letting Foreman continually beat on him, basically guarding the whole time. And Ali would take the beating. Unfortunately, Foreman ended up wearing himself out, which gave Ali where he didn't have to have all that much power or all that much strength. Foreman was out of energy, and Ali took advantage and beat him. It was basically luck that he won. Or if you think about it, Ali came up with a strategy and it worked. Like I said, I think the movie Rocky 3 actually explained this really well with the Clubber Lang Rocky matchup. Whereas Clubber Lang was this power who was known to take his opponents out almost instantly in the first to third round, Rocky had worn himself out over the years with these easy matches that he didn't know were being set up for him. And then he found out and he got angry. Well, then he realized he had to learn a new way to fight. And he got a guy he'd formerly faced and ended up beating for the title eventually to be Apollo Creed to be his trainer for this. And as he was training, he taught him a new way to fight. But during the match, Rocky didn't take this advice, and while using this, he was still getting beat, and he realized something. Clubber was really strong, but he was wearing himself out with all the power he had to put into his swings. So he got him to waste the energy, and thereby draining his strength and draining his stamina, which gave Rocky the eventual edge. Sorry for those of you who hadn't seen the movie and given that spoiler, sorry. But it came to mind as I was thinking about this just now, actually. Also, games and competition are a good educational experience. There are scholarships that are actually given to players who are good in certain types of games, such as chess or in athletics. But something a lot of people don't realize is that there used to be, I don't know if it still exists or not, there used to be scholarships given out to people who were good at playing pool or billiards, as it was known to some people, as it's known to other people. And you didn't have to be great at what was considered to be an actual sport, because being good at pool or billiards, they were willing to give you a scholarship for it, and you got to go to college off that. Sadly, I think they actually got rid of that, and it sucks because I know some people. I used to know some people that'd be really good for that scholarship. And now, other examples of games being educational: TV show Jeopardy, Wheel of Fortune, the board game Trivial Pursuit. Kids could watch these shows and they could learn, especially in Jeopardy and Trivial Pursuit. They would be wanting to win so badly that they would learn that they'd be willing to try and win by getting the right answer, which means they'd have to know it. So, and as people got older, like I said, there was a game show that used to air on PBS known as the Scholars Bowl, and then it became the College Bowl. If you've ever seen the movie starring Kid and Play known as Class Act, they have a game show on there known as the Knowledge Bowl, which is a clear reference to this game, where you had high school students competing for the school's pride, and at the same time, the kids on the movie they gave them a different prize, but the idea was that the kids would get a scholarship set up in their name. I mean, they'd have money set up for them so that they could go to college, and often it was a scholarship to whatever school that would accept them. I mean, that accepted them. And this also looks good on applications because it proves how much of a team player you are and how good you can work with others. But it also proves how smart you are. But again, back to the point, with Jeopardy and Trivial Pursuit, this was one of the ones that these were games that actually interested me even. And I was into athletics and just having fun. But I would watch these shows, and I'd watch Jeopardy. I still do to this day. It's just not as often. And I played Trivial Pursuit because I actually enjoyed these games. And it was fun to learn things I didn't know. But a lot of kids aren't into the idea of learning, so this is a good way to get them to learn. And those that lose didn't want to lose again, so they'd remember those answers, but they would also be more likely to actually study either the questions in the game or actually pay attention in class and learn things that could be used in case it came up later in the game. I mean, in another game that they would play where the trivia came up. Like with Jeopardy, the questions are constantly updated because things are constantly changing. So while one day the world record at something could be one thing, the next time the person gets this question, the answer could be something different altogether for it. It could be a new record holder, or it could be a new amount or distance or something about it, which is what makes things interesting. And Jeopardy was actually one of the things that helped me when I started college to understand a lot of what the teachers were talking about, where I didn't have to ask a lot of questions. And also, it was one of the things that got me interested in the subject of psychology, which I took in college for one semester. And while I enjoyed it, realized I wasn't really into it as much as I thought I was. And it helped me to learn. It also helped me to realize that I enjoyed English. So it helped me to realize I enjoyed literature more than I did the science and arts a lot. Which is one reason at one point I actually thought of becoming an English teacher. But again, sorry I'm going off on tangents. But those are my reasons for that. I mean, for why sports are important and competitions. I mean, sports and competitions are important. Leave me a comment you can state your favorite rivalries. You can tell me whether you think your feelings on the subject of competition and sports being important. And also, leave me a comment on what you'd like me to do for a future subject, because, like I said, I read the comments and I like to see what people think. And Until next time, I'll see you.